Love the album cover.
Yeah, it's pretty cool looking.
It is, and if you haven't seen it, it's essentially a skull with the mandibular portion missing. That is the lower jaw missing. So it's just the upper portion and then the skull itself. And it's a skull, and it looks like two hands coming up and grabbing the skull, like, oh my God, what just happened, kind of a pose. But the fingers kind of at their tips morph into these like almost tubes meshing into the brain. And it truly is it looks like a battle for the mind. And that's so as soon as I saw the album cover, I was kind of intrigued.
Yeah.
Which it kind of turned me on. I was like, okay, well, let's give this a shot. So that being said, I did not really have a reference point coming into this other than just kind of knowing they were that melodic death band that everybody loved in the late 90s and early 2000s. And, they were kind of one of 3 or 4 bands that kind of put that genre on the map. Not my thing, but it is what it is. So I began listening to it, and I've listened to it a few times now. And I there are moments where they are listenable to me. But the vast majority of this CD is not what I remember them being. Not that I sat and listened to their albums, one after the other back in the day. But I do remember what they sounded like. And this truly is not it. Now, does that mean it's no good? Well, not necessarily. I'll still judge it on its own merits. And so the first song's called Drained. And actually, they should have put that song last, because by the end of the album, that's what I was. The end, well, it's also fitting. That's song number 2, because I think this might be the end for the band. They already lost their guitarist last year. Now the drummer and bassist are both leaving. I think the drummer's already gone. The bassist is leaving at the end of the tour. So In Flames is, a one-man outfit now, for the most part. And then we get to The Truth, which has this kind of, for a moment, I didn't know if I was listening to like Duran Duran with screamo vocals here and there. I wasn't really sure. It's a really weird combo of things. And I'm not going to go through it song by song. I mean, Jason, I think you'll have way more on this than I do, but I will say this. I felt like listening to this CD, they were going after a junior high school crowd from 15, 20 years ago. Like, it's very dated. It's not fresh. There's nothing new about it. The lyrics are cheesy. And I mean, there's some cheese on this CD, and it's not even good cheese. It's like generic Velveeta. It's just bad. So I can't really do anything with this other than to say I absolutely would not own it. I can't imagine that and I can't speak for older fans like yourself, and I'm sure I'm going to let you speak for yourself, but I can't imagine being an older school fan of this band and then saying, oh, this is the In Flames album I've been waiting for. I just can't imagine that. So what say you?
Well, you're right on a handful of things. I mean, let's talk about the band themselves. At this point in time, I mean, even if you listen to Spotify, they kind of had a commentary on the new album from Bjorn and Anders, who are the only 2 members left of the band. To your point, I mean, Peter Evers is leaving the band after the U.S. tour, so it's just going to be Bjorn and Anders. But at the same time, like it or not, that's been the brain trust of In Flames ever since Jesper left anyway. And let's just kind of dissect this, not necessarily track by track, but just kind of give it an overall. I fell in love with In Flames on Horacle. I listened to Horacle at a used CD store. I saw it was clearly this is, before the days of the internet being rampant. I had heard of this band before. And I'm like, I know that's a metal band, and I know I've heard of them, and one of their CDs is here. And it's the kind of CD store you can just go into and be like, can I listen to this? Back in the day, right? So I popped I had the dude who worked there pop the CD in, put the headphones on, and I about fell over. I mean, it was unlike anything I'd ever heard in my life. Incredibly good. When I first heard Jotun come on, and Food for the Gods and Gyroscope and all of these great songs off of Horacle, I was just like, dude, I'm buying this instantly. And then I bought Colony. I saw In Flames in their first North American show at the Milwaukee Metal Fest in a room full of about 250 people. I mean, it was a shitbox of a room that they performed in. I saw their first U.S. tour at the Rave in Milwaukee, at the Rave Basement Bar. I saw them at a Knights of Columbus in Arlington Heights, Illinois, when they were touring with Colony. If that gives you any idea of how I saw them in their very, very infant stages here in the United States in popularity, and how I am a fan and what genre of or time period of fan I was of In Flames. And with every album they've released, from Colony on, Clayman was good, but not as good. I want to say it was Reroute to Remain after that, getting a little more simplistic and a little bit less melody there. Not as good, but still decent. Soundtrack to Your Escape, not as good, not even as good as Reroute to Remain, but still listenable. Couple of nice tracks, and then from there, it just kind of fell apart. And the last album they've had that's even worth a shit is Come Clarity. Ever since then, it's been really, really mediocre, if not just flat out bad, really bad. And that's when Bjorn, God love him, because I was a big fan and thought he had a lot more of a role in the band than I now believe to be the case. Because with Jesper gone, Bjorn writing the riffs, they're just boring. There's very little melody, and it's overly simplistic for a band with a ton of talent. And so when you listen to Drained, which is a mid-tempo, kind of catchy song, actually, I mean, it's not overly intricate, but it's not bad. And it's better than almost any other track on the song or on the album, honestly. And miles better than anything off of Siren Charms, but that's not saying anything. Siren Charms was an absolute dumpster fire of a piece of shit you lit on fire and threw in a dumpster. That was Siren Charms, and so when you hear Drained, you go, okay, this isn't as bad, but it doesn't mean it's any good. Same thing with The End. The End has a pretty cool riff during it. And then, Biv, to your point, there's The End and there's The Truth, which have these it sounds like a group of 10 teenagers that are singing the chorus. Yeah,
it's a children's choir.
Yeah, and it's like, what the hell is this? It's creepy and bad. I don't understand the point of this. And that's what you heard in the end chorus, and you heard in The Truth as well, or at least in the beginning. Yes. We are, and there's 10 people in the beginning of The End, and it has this little 4 on the floor, almost house sounding beat to start the beginning. It's very odd. Not terrible, but just not good. I can't describe it any other way, but then you have other songs, like Sand, for example, sounds dead up like a song you would hear off Sounds of a Playground Fading, which is where it really started to fall apart. In My Room, that's a Siren Charms song, and it's awful. Before I Fall sounds like another Sounds of a Playground Fading track. Average and very skippable. A song that I'd listen to once and go, okay, well, next time I listen to the album, I'm going past that song. Now, Through My Eyes, by the way, now you have something here. Very Come Clarity sounding, and actually one of my favorite tracks on the album as well. Through My Eyes is pretty good. The song Battles, the title track, meh, it's okay. Here Until Forever, meh. Underneath My Skin, it's a Sounds of a Playground Fading-like track again. Wallflower is god-awful. Another Siren Charms sounding song, and it's 7 minutes. 7 minutes of bad. Save Me is more in a step of a right direction. A little bit more catchy, not amazing, but definitely better. Greatest Greed starts off with this electronic starting sound, kind of a cool riff, decent track, and then it ends with Us Against the World, which actually sounds kind of punky at first, and then has a almost Colony-like riff. And then ends the album pretty well. But when you kind of summarize it, I mean, standout tracks, maybe Us Against the World, Through My Eyes, and Drained would be the 3 that I would go, okay, these are pretty good. Decent would be The End, The Truth, and Save Me. The rest are flat out skippable or bad. And so when you look at this album as a whole, and I want to be careful with how I say this, because I have a lot of friends of mine, my brother is a good example of this, and some friends of mine that we're all in. I was the guy who's like, dude, you got to check out In Flames, as way back in the day. So I have a bunch of friends who are into In Flames. Some have fallen off, going, these guys suck, just like I have. Others have, held out hope, going, maybe this is the album where they won't suck. And I know if my brother's listening to this, and I'm sure he will, he's probably, and we haven't even talked about this, he's probably pleased with the album because it's not as bad as Siren Charms. And that to me would be like Opeth doing another album after Sorceress, having 2 or 3 tracks on it that don't completely suck ass, and going, oh, Opeth's back. No, they're not. It just means they didn't suck as bad as the last album. That doesn't mean it's any damn good. And that's where I feel this In Flames album falls right in. It's an album that is decent at best, and that's a stretch. For the most part, more tracks are bad than good. Some are flat out awful. Some are decent, and some are pretty good. Nothing that I would say, killer track, play this thing again. Doesn't happen. And so for me, as much as I'd like to like this album, and as critical as I've been of one of my favorite bands back in the day, I got to be real. I have to be honest and give my honest assessment of what I feel this album falls into. And for me, it's a 6 out of 10 at best.
Fair enough. I don't know that mine carries quite as much weight as yours does because you've been a longtime fan, but I felt like from what my limited knowledge is from their early stuff to where they are today, I had to ask that question. Well, if you're losing your fan base, are you gaining new fans?
They are, though.
And
that's the thing that pisses me off. Here's the thing you need to know, Biff. Despite how shitty they are, more people like In Flames now, audience-wise, than the guys like me who saw him in a 400, max capacity, shitty bar in Aurora, Illinois. You know what I mean?
Well, you see, and this is exactly how I felt when Scenes from a Memory came out for Dream Theater. That was the turning point of their popularity. They were kind of this underground, popular, progressive metal band. And then all of a sudden, Jordan Rudess comes along. They put out Scenes from a Memory, Metropolis Part 2. And then all of a sudden they just take off to what they are today. And I don't understand it. So I'm I totally understand where you're coming from as a fan. I did some research on this before I, did this review, and yes, they're still selling out, 10,000 seat arenas. I get it. They are doing that. That doesn't mean their music doesn't suck balls, though.
All right. Well, Five Finger Death Punch does very well too, and rest my case. Rob Zombie does very well too. Rest my case.
Well,
I mean, come on.
I'm a big fan of Five Finger Donkey Punch. So
well, that's a whole different band.
Oh, sorry, different band. Okay.
Yes, totally.
All right. Well, that being said, I gave it a 5 out of 10.
Okay, so I mean, we're not far off. It's just now, if we reviewed Siren Charms when we had a podcast when they came out, I would have gave it a 2 out of 10, maybe a 1 because it was that bad. So is this better? Sure, but it's still not In Flames. I don't know what you think this is, and with Peter leaving, and Bjorn writing just lazy riffs. By the way, I do want to say this, in fairness, this is the best Anders has sounded in years, and I think the only reason why the album is, why I would give it a 6 out of 10 versus even a 4 or 5, is one of the things that started to drive me nuts from Anders for the last decade is these whiny vocals in which, when you don't do growled vocals anymore, which Anders does half the time, not even, that's fine if you can sing. When you can't sing, that's a problem. And
very nasally.
Oh, yeah. And, dude, if you think, I challenge you, if you do not like his vocals on this, go back and listen to Siren Charms or Sounds of a Playground Fading or something like that and go, wow,
I'm good.
Anders is way better. I'm telling you, if there's any consolation prize, Anders sounds the best he's sounded in years. Again, that's nothing to write home about, but instead of being an F, you get like a C-, which is, it's an improvement, I guess. We'll see. But anyway, That is Battles from In Flames. Curious what you guys think. I know they're a band that will result in banter back and forth. Like it or not, that's what's going to happen. So curious your thoughts. We'll post this on the Facebook page as we always do, and would love to get your feedback as to what you think about